welcome to episode 9 of Talent Hub TV. This is our first international Talent Hub TV, so we're here at Dreamforce, and we're here meeting Gemma Emmett from the UK. So we're really excited to have you here and to talk about your journey with Salesforce and the whole Dreamforce experience. So thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You having a good week?
Yes, tiring week, but a really, really fun week.
Yeah, perfect. Getting right into the Dreamforce experience.
Yeah.
And how many times have you been before?
I went once before, 2016, and I just went as a self-funded guest, really. So myself and my husband just went around collecting swag and speaking to people, and it was really fun.
Nice.
And then this time it's been 5 sessions, 5 breakout sessions that we've been doing. So, yeah, it's been lots and lots of fun.
You'll need a holiday afterwards.
Yes, even though I do a CTA workshop next week. So
it's all good.
Yeah, it is all.
So you've been in the market for 10 years, I believe.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that journey, what you started doing, what you do now, and I guess your Salesforce journey today?
Yeah, sure. I started with a tech background, so I haven't lost it. I have a degree in business and IT,
okay.
And I chose to do that because I wanted to do something that I could use. And when I first left university and got a job, my role was to pull data out. So I worked for a fire service,
okay.
And I was pulling out incident data and pushing it into a performance management system,
sure,
to help with strategic planning for the next year. So my role was very much centered around pulling data out of systems and making it look pretty.
Yeah.
And then, so if I fast forward a couple of years, I moved from the Midlands of the UK down to the sort of the London area, to a place called High Wycombe, and I got a job working for an airline. And I didn't quite get on too great there. I didn't pass my probation. It wasn't the right fit for either of us. We had a mutual handshake and said, no, we're not doing this anymore. And within a week, I was given a job at Dun & Bradstreet in Marlow. And they said, have you heard of this thing called Salesforce? And I said, no. And they said, well, we're an early adopter. It's a CRM system. They explained what a CRM system was. And I was like, okay, yeah. I was about 22, 23 back then.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, you're going to be using this data from this system. We're early adopters and we're very keen for you to learn it. So it's like, okay. And I think I haven't even ever logged into the system yet. And I went to Dreamforce Europe, which was at the Barbican Centre in 2008. And I remember thinking, my goodness, well, this place is just too small for everyone who wants to be here. And Google were there with bean bags. And
oh, really?
Yeah, it was so much smaller because Mark used to do the keynotes then. So that is now known as World Tour. It's had several different names over the years. It's been called Cloudforce. It's been called a customer company event or customer community tour. It's been various different things, and they've now settled on the Salesforce World Tour.
Sure.
I think I managed about 18 months working as an administrator. So whilst I was pushing and pulling data, my role evolved into an admin, and I was looking after about 250 salespeople.
And did that evolve with training, or were you kind of one of these people that had to just get on with it at the time and learn the ropes from playing around the system?
Well, I had regular jobs I had to do, so I had to do data loads. So I learned most of what I learned about Salesforce was around the data model and and the APIs, so pushing data in and out. And then it was reporting, and then it just grew from there. Okay. So my role evolved from being a reporting analyst within a sales operations division towards actually being a full-time admin, having the opportunity to build a few custom objects and work with people for requirements. Okay. And an opportunity came up. I decided I really, really liked it, and I loved being in that admin role, and I soaked up knowledge quite quickly, and I achieved a certification while I was there when the program was really new. Yeah. And decided I wanted to go and help other people with it. And I remember Julie, the first person who mentored me, she said at the time, she said, oh, you want to go consulting? And I said, I don't know, is that what that is? And she said, yeah, if you want. But she says, I wouldn't do that because of all the travel. And I said, well, I'm quite up for that. Yeah. So a role came up and I went for it, and then began my consulting career. and it evolved quite quickly. I ended up going into contracting, and then after a while I had a baby and decided that contracting wasn't quite right for that situation because I was getting quite stressed because I wasn't being paid on time.
Yeah.
It's always a trade-off with contracting. You get a lot of money, but not always on time. So it was quite worrying. But I then decided to go permanent, and I went to work, and I wanted to work on enterprise projects. I wanted that experience, so I joined Gemini.
Sure.
And then another opportunity came up with Financial Force, and I went there, and I stayed there for 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And that was really born because I had implemented Financial Force PSA in the UK.
Sure.
When they first bought it.
Yeah.
And I was fairly good at it, so off I went. And then that role just kind of evolved as well. As we were pushing PSA, we were also pushing multiple other apps as well.
Sure.
So the role went from being somebody who was a bit of an expert in Salesforce and pushing the product and then helping customers get the value out of that plus PSA, to actually stringing multiple managed packages together within Salesforce and then going off platform as well.
Okay.
So the considerations became more about security and data model and reporting and integrations, a little bit of single sign-on as well. And I realised that actually the job I was doing wasn't really consulting anymore, it was architect.
Yeah.
And it was my job to make sure that everything hung together beautifully and that the project was well governed. And an opportunity came up at Blue Wolf last year, and I haven't really looked back since.
So you've been with Blue Wolf, and you're now in a solution architect role?
Yes.
Okay.
Formal one,
Yeah, nice. And talking of architecture, you run a group, Ladies Be Architects,
yeah.
Representing with a tattoo today.
2 tattoos.
Can you tell us a little bit about that group and how it came about?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I say when people say, "Oh, it's amazing and inspiring," blah blah, is that it actually just started with I was doing certifications. I had some downtime at work.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to do some certifications, and I didn't really want to do them on my own.
Sure.
And I went into the architect success community, and it was a great message board, fantastic. I just wondered what were people actually doing to support each other and help each other with their certifications. And I decided to start my own group to get girls together, because I noticed there wasn't many females
Sure.
in there. So I said, let's do this, and we'll do some study groups and actually be proactive about it.
Yeah.
And I just clicked create group, and then I thought I'd see how that went, run some webinars, and it just grew from there.
Sure. So is it mainly like webinar based? Because I know it's not just for your local community, right? So,
it's for everybody.
Yeah. So how has that grown from being a group that you clicked start to now being a group that in Australia we're hearing about and seeing and seeing content about? So how's that grown, and what are the plans for the next kind of 12 months?
It has actually just grown out of nowhere. It's very organic. The original idea was, okay, why don't we just look at territory management this month? And I'll film the session so that people in all time zones and areas, and men as well, can take advantage of these resources. Because
Sure.
you can do trailheads, but sometimes people learn a bit better in a classroom situation or a lecture theatre kind of situation. So from my perspective, it was just it was helping me as well, selfishly.
Sure.
Because I do think the easiest way to learn is to actually teach as well.
Yeah.
So if I'm sat there doing my research and then delivering a talk about territory management, I'm going to come out of that session myself feeling like I know territory management.
Yeah.
Of course, I've forgotten a lot of it now, but I know relatively enough now.
Sure.
But people started to take notice. I was writing blogs as well to help with the certifications.
Yeah.
And after a while, I just decided we needed a Twitter account, and then it became, now I need someone to help me and go to community events in America. So Charlie came on board with me and started speaking at events. Salesforce jumped on board as well and said, we love what you're doing.
Sure.
Let's make sure that we can help you grow it. So they started to talk about it at Trailhead DX. They started to do some blog posts and features. And then they approached me in May, very much out of the blue, like 2 weeks before World Tour, and said, we want to make a video about you. And it's been signed off by Mark Benioff. And I was like, oh my God, okay. Yeah. So it has been a very organic thing, and then it became, we'll do the webinars, but then let's look at some of the other programs we could do. And we realised very quickly that there wasn't much out there to help people who wanted to be CTAs, Certified Technical Architects. It was very much this mysterious panel, and people were like, I don't really know what happens at one of those, what level of detail am I supposed to go into. So we started a program to get people doing mocks. I've now got a program for people writing scenarios, because they are not out there either. And we've got the Trailheads Architect Certification Trailheads, which are really helpful as well, which is, it's kind of taken things out of the PDF guides and put them onto Trailhead. So we've been kind of adding to those, running the monthly groups. And it inspired 3 or 4 women to start running their own deep dive sessions. So we've got a lady called Blanca Leon Carter. She ran a Platform Developer 1 course, 7 sessions of everything that you need to know to pass PD1. We had Natalia and Nikki, who both ran integration groups, and then Lynette from Accenture, as well as Charlie, who has been running the mock review boards with me.
Okay. So they're helping you run day to day, but how many people would you say are in the group now that are engaging and benefiting from the group?
It's actually a very wide audience as well. We have a lot of men who really like what we're doing and are able to use it as well. And we like to be very inclusive. We say it's ladies to be architects. We just want ladies to run the sessions, because it's about confidence and building up that confidence. But we have an awful lot of men who use our content, and we're building it all the time. So
it's for everyone.
It is for everyone.
Yeah, okay, great. And the CTA journey, how is your journey taking shape? And I guess you mentioned teaching is helping you along the way, but are there people in there that are also playing a real big part in helping you get towards that CTA?
There are. So my mentor is a gentleman called Andrew Hart, and he was my manager at Blue Wolf. He's just recently left, but he has committed to helping me continue on my path. So he has been mentoring me. There's a lady called Doina Popper.
Yeah, we know Doina.
You know Doina?
Yeah.
Doina's been helping me with mocks. There are various people from Salesforce who've also helped with mocks. And then Luke Emberton is another CTO based in the UK, and who's offered his help as well.
Great.
I was all ready to go for the board. I'd done about 7 or 8 different mocks, both remotely and in person, and been through the pain of the Q&A, which is like torture. But and studying in between, using my own spare time to study in between sessions. And I think I was about 2 weeks away from the board when, and actually it was World Tour in the video that was played at World Tour, when I was given the hoodie. I think that was on the Thursday, and then on the Monday I found out I had cancer for the 2nd time. So immediately, obviously I was very hacked off about that, and I knew it was going to be another long road ahead to sort that out, and that I probably wouldn't be able to focus very much on my CTA, so it had to go on hold. But I'm planning now to go for the review board in March. So now that I've had my treatment and we're confident that it's gone and dealt with, so I'm not going to come back. My plan is to actually go to the review board in March.
And that's now on camera March that people know.
March 2019. I might not pass it then, but I'm at least going to have my first attempt then.
Absolutely, I'm sure with all the practice and the group and everyone helping you, I'm sure you'll be in a good place to give it your best shot.
Fingers crossed.
So CTA is obviously, so many people in the market want to strive towards that, and you've gone through all of these mock exams, you now truly understand what it takes, right? Because the Q&A, until you face that, you don't really know what to expect. So what's your advice to people that haven't gone through the mocks, haven't kind of had the benefit of these kind of Q&A sessions, the mentors, the assistants? What advice would you give to them?
My advice for approaching CTA in general is to remember that it's not a collection of certifications. You need to have, there's a hike to get to the mountain before you even climb it.
Yeah.
So collecting certs isn't the right way to do it.
Sure.
You need experience. A really good way to gain the experience that you need is to, if you're in a customer-facing role, take part in pre-sales.
Yeah.
Because you have it's a similar scenario, right? It's like doing an RFP.
You're put on the spot and ask questions.
Yeah, and you need to be able to to think of solutions quite quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a skill that you need. And certainly, other advice I would give on this is not to try and rush into it, and to understand that once you have achieved the system architect and application architect credentials, that only makes you eligible. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should then go and take the review board next week.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, you're probably about 60% of the way there.
Yeah.
Once you have got your domain certifications.
Sure.
So the final 40% is continuation of study. So you're not studying to pass the exams, you're studying to retain the knowledge for the big one.
Yeah.
And that's something that I wish I'd done at the very beginning. Because at the very beginning it was, I've got some downtime, I'm going to do some certs, you know.
Sure.
It's easy to get into that. But I'm going to have to go back and study everything all over again, just so that I can really call it out, especially because I had 6 weeks off this summer.
Sure.
And practice my ability to recall a lot of that. So I think if you understand that and you treat it like it's a driving test, that you do need to do a certain number of lessons before you can go for the practical. You know? I personally passed my driving test after 2 years of learning.
Sure. I
wasn't in any rush. I wanted to get it right.
Yeah.
But equally as well, one of the excellent piece of advice that I got from doing it yesterday was, if you wait until you're 150% ready, you'll never be ready. You'll never do it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So once you feel that you can do it, go for it, but don't try and blag it.
Yeah.
You've got to know your stuff, and they will catch you out.
Sure.
You need to have good communication skills, good presentation skills, and really practice. And that's why we're building scenarios, because we want people to practice. But we appreciate that there are only a certain number of practice scenarios available to people.
Sure.
So we are also looking for volunteers to help us build up that bank.
Okay.
And we're just going to make those available to everybody.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I think that's so true, what Dinah said about the 150% thing, because so many people do want to know 100% sure they're going to pass, and I don't think you can ever truly know that, because you don't know what to expect on the day. And the way the platform evolves, you might get there now, but 6 months later there's so much more to know that you just can't keep up if you're going to keep waiting for that 150%. So
another key one as well is that there is no right solution. There is no, a lot of people ask for the solution keys for things that we've done, and I've said, no, I'm sorry, because we've deliberately not created them. It's down to you to interpret the scenario according to your knowledge and experience, and to justify adequately why you've selected that solution.
Okay.
Because a lot of the time, as a judge as well, you're not necessarily going to agree with the approach that the candidate's taken. But if they have managed to justify it appropriately,
sure,
and it's secure, and they've considered large data volumes, and they've considered governor limits and all of those things, then your hands are fine.
Yeah.
I have to pass you on.
Yeah, you can't foul them if they've argued their case. Okay. And you're not from a development background, and we a lot of people think that you have to be able to code to one day be a CTA. What's your take on that?
I think you have to know when to use code and when code is less appropriate. And at the moment, what we see at the moment is many solutions that are a really nice mixture of both. Especially from the coding side, it's more focused towards UI and lightning experience now and integration. But even from what I saw at a developer keynote today, even I think that it will be, certainly with MuleSoft, a lot of the setup of the APIs that you build are declarative. So you're filling fields in and then the code gets magically produced on the right hand side.
Sure.
But if you know roughly, you can see a payload on the right hand side with JSON message in it. And all of the fields and the data that's going to go into the fields, you can roughly understand what's going on, and it's important. And you can read, you know what to put into the URL when you're sending the parameters through.
Sure.
So, and certainly from an identity perspective as well, if you know how to set up the connected app and make all the URLs point the right way, that's not coding.
Yeah.
But it is technical.
Sure.
That's the thing. So, and that's why I think there's the big difference, because ultimately in this scenario, you are solving a business scenario. You need to be able to have a conversation with a customer as an architect and be able to say, use your knowledge. Customer asks a question, can we do this? Yes, but.
Yeah.
Or yes, and.
Sure.
So, and that's the difference, I think. As a developer, you're building solutions in a specific way, but as an architect, you're trying to articulate the trade-offs between doing it this way and then doing it that way.
Sure.
And cater that towards the client's current system landscape, the future system landscape, the politics, the psychology of the people you're dealing with as well.
Yeah.
And everything else that you have to integrate with.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into it. So 10 years within the Salesforce ecosystem, how have you seen the Ohana grow in that time? Like, was it for me? I've not been in the market as long, so has it always been this way, or has that been something that's evolved at the time?
There's always been a community. I would say that there've been success community and portals and idea exchange. When I first started, it was primarily idea exchange, and then they released the community. And then the community was effectively felt like a place where you could go and ask a question and someone would answer it. It's exploded into Twitter.
Yeah.
It's exploded onto Facebook and various other places, and now and community events. And that's what's made things different, because you now have community conferences where you can go and, your average practitioner, admin, developer, architect, MVP, we can all get involved in public speaking. Whereas before it was always you go to Dreamforce or World Tour and you would see people from Salesforce doing their talks.
Sure.
The community has grown to the point where people are being recognised as leaders within that community, and there's evangelists as well. So it's free marketing for Salesforce, but the thing that makes the Ohana so special is that it really does feel like a family.
Yeah.
I've hugged more people this week than I think I hugged at World Tour this year.
Sure.
World Tour is a massive highlight for me. I've always looked forward to World Tour.
Yeah.
But this year I actually know people, and I know them through Twitter, through daily interactions through Twitter and so on. But then, just the interesting thing has just been partying with people that through Twitter when you've never met face to face, or just playing ping pong with them. And it is a family. Even with work as well, I did my first ever Dreamforce session, and 6 people from community all turned up, sat in the front row and going, "Yes, Gemma, come on," and they're cheering you on. And my mum and dad are back in the UK, it's the sort of thing my mum and dad would come and watch and sit in the front row and cheer their daughter on.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is a beautiful thing, and I feel so lucky to meet such wonderful people.
Yeah.
And it has grown, it's exploded.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we came to know of you through the channels you mentioned, through LinkedIn, through Twitter, through Salesforce pushing your brand as well, and then the group. And I've mentioned people that from the Australian market, and obviously we know people from the UK market. It does just feel like one big community, and it doesn't matter, like location isn't important. Has the Ohana given you international, obviously we're here in San Fran now, but broader than just San Francisco, has it given you international travel opportunities and exposure?
In the last year or throughout my career?
The 10 years, yeah.
Throughout my career, I had a lot of opportunity to travel. I've been to Sweden, and I've been to India,
Yeah.
and I've been to the US, various countries around Europe for work, and it has given me the opportunity. Certainly, more of that opportunity was while I was in financial force, because we were growing. It's US, EMEA, and before Australia, really, we had people going up to Australia because we didn't have an Australian office. And the time zone is very, very difficult to work with, so we had to get an office in Australia. But yeah, I mean, it's been eye-opening. My week in Mumbai it changed me as a person.
Really?
It made me, it shuffled my priorities, definitely. And it helped me to understand more about the culture over there, so that when I work with offshore is, for the UK, we often outsource things to India, and there's a certain way of working, and if you have to be there to see it, I think, and you can do certain things remotely, but being there for the week helped me understand how the hierarchy works in a meeting in India.
Sure.
So I was able to help and coach some of the other people I'm working with in my team.
Yeah.
To understand how to get the very best out of those amazingly intelligent resources in India.
Okay, great. And you mentioned earlier about the Goblin hoodie. So what did that mean to you getting that, and how did that come about?
I didn't know I was getting it. I had a suspicion. I always thought they were tacky. But it's when you take a photo of them, they look amazing.
Yeah.
They do look really good. It was an incredible honour to receive it, I have to be honest. I wasn't expecting it at all.
Sure.
I didn't think I'd done much, really. I thought just all I wanted was a study buddy. And I happen to now have 700 study buddies. But I didn't think I was doing anything particularly special. I just got off my backside and wanted to do something and get other people to join me. That was all. I just wanted to take people along for the ride.
Sure.
So it was a very, very special moment.
Yeah.
When I was walking into the keynote for World Tour, and nobody was in there yet, but they were doing sound checks and video checks, and they were playing music, and people will tell you I teared up massively, because I've loved Salesforce. I've been in love with Salesforce technology for the whole of the 10 years I've worked with it. So to be stood there, getting VIP treatment, and just the music was just so emotive, and that was it. I was off. And it happened the other day as well. I went to Salesforce West for a meeting to drop into the architect boot camp. We got out on the third floor, and there's all the trees and the beautiful decorations and the sound of birds tweeting, and I was going.
It all came back.
Yeah, it was just because it's just been such a huge part of keeping me sane for the last 6 months. I've had a huge operation, double mastectomy and reconstruction, and then I've been going through some difficult medication since as well. So that is pretty much what kept me from going mad over the summer. So to actually be here at Dreamforce was very emotional for me.
I can imagine,
because I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe how kind everybody's been. They sent gifts and best wishes over, and it was just the most beautiful and very kind gesture that we've had. And the Salesforce themselves have treated me like family too.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It comes back to the honor and family. Like everyone around is going to be supportive and get amongst it, and make sure that you're feeling as best you can and be there for you. So that's great that has happened. So tell us a little bit about the UK Salesforce market, because we recruit in ANZ. Although I'm from the UK, I've never recruited there, so it'd be good to get some insight into is it what kind of size projects are typical, how hard it is to find good people, that kind of thing.
It's growing. When I first started, Salesforce the market was used for work was centered around early adopters on the enterprise side, small to medium enterprises as well, and having people who knew Salesforce was a great advantage. Now we have a major skills shortage because the demand is so high.
Yeah.
Salesforce has done a great job of selling itself. The product sells itself.
Sure.
And in the UK, everyone wants to come and play in Salesforce. The challenge now is, I think, on two sides. One is that we just don't have enough people with the experience, but that is growing. Certainly now that we have Trailhead, you're going to get a lot more admins or people with general experience, people with Trailhead badges entering the market.
Sure.
And working as admins, and obviously recruiting for people who have certifications is quite key. We see pretty much most of your average Salesforce jobs, they require at least 1 or 2 certifications, or at least the willingness to get another certification. On the other side as well, is there's a big gap, so there's a lot of newcomers to the recruitment market, people who've not been doing it very long, and then on the other side you've got quite a large bunch of people who have been doing it for about 10 years, and that has meant actually that we have an advantage on the salary front. We can request higher salaries, and that has been happening.
Sure.
It's very competitive because there's a skills shortage. And quite frankly, why wouldn't you? You know, if you're going for a job, you say, right, I will come, but you have to pay me this much.
I've got 10 years experience.
And I've got 16 certifications.
Sure.
You know, thank you very much. It's an advantage of the job. I don't do it for the money. I do it because I want to learn more. And I want to work across lots of industries. But there's no denying that has kind of pushed things up a bit.
Okay.
It is a busy market. It's a competitive market. And a lot of my friends from the UK at World Tour, I hang out with recruiters a lot. And I think it's important as a practitioner to build a good network of recruiters that you trust. And those recruiters that you can trust are the ones who recognise they have 2 clients.
Of course.
Instead of just seeing the money, pound signs in the eyes. So I do have a few very, very favourite select few recruiters that I speak to very regularly. We check in, we have a drink together.
That's good.
And they'll call up every 6 months. Are you still happy at Blue Wolf? Yes, I'm happy. Okay, great.
And is it predominantly a permanent market, or are there more contract roles in the Salesforce market in the UK?
I think it changes. When I went permanent, there weren't any contract roles that I could get. And then it seemed to pick up again. So I think it changes a lot. It's very dynamic. And we see a good mix now of consultancies, partners, end users, ISVs. There's a nice mix of requirements there.
That's good.
From people.
So whatever you're interested in, there's going to be options and an opportunity out there.
And I know people who have been contracting so long now that they would struggle to get into permanent, not for any other reason but that they don't want to go permanent. They like the autonomy, they like billing every month, and they like to know that they don't have a boss. Okay, cool. And for aspiring ladies, women that want to get into the technology world or learn Salesforce, what advice would you have for them? Come and join us, we'll help you. That's the biggest piece. If you've got any questions or comments, we're always happy to take feedback as well. And for the next year, we're going to, at some point, be putting our planning together for what we're going to do next year, now that we've landed. And a lot of that needs to come from you. It needs to come from people who want to join us. You don't even have to want to be a CTA. If you just want to do a few designer certs, build up your credentials that way. And build up your experience. I've always found if you're going to do a certification, try and do one that's relevant to a project that you're working on right now. If you're doing a big implementation that involves a formal DevOps process with source control and continuous integration, then it's an ideal time to say to your manager, I want to do the development lifecycle and designer exam because it's really fresh in my mind. So,
and you've mentioned your first mentor, so has having a mentor been something you've done throughout the Salesforce journey, and how important has that been?
Yes and no. I had a mentor at the very beginning, so there's a photo of us at World Tour where I had my very first mentor, Julie, and then my current mentor, Andrew, with me on the stage with my husband and my friend. So it was a really, really nice picture.
For sure.
Almost like 2 bookends. And I think in the years in between, much of my mentorship has come from a variety of different people. I haven't really had one for a while. Certainly as a contractor, I was working on my own a lot, so I didn't have much of a mentor back then. But now I have several different people that help me with things. So Andrew's helped me by getting me through the process of CTA, but then I might go and talk to a colleague of mine about identity and a different colleague about DevOps.
Sure.
Where play to their strengths.
Yeah.
So my mentors are a variety of people, not necessarily CTAs.
So there's always someone that you can go to and ask for advice. Great. So what's, from a Salesforce perspective, what's been your biggest learnings over the last kind of 12 months with the changes or the new features and products?
That there's going to be a lot more to learn. Obviously, the Salesforce as a company has grown, so it's able to build departments to take on new innovations. So for me, I'm interested in CPQ and I'm interested in Health Cloud for Payers, which has just entered the market.
Yeah.
And I think we're only going to see it grow, branching off and growing into much larger versions of their current states
Sure.
at the moment. The nice thing is that it's still on one platform.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to keep me interested. There's always new things to learn.
Yeah, great. And what about Dreamforce? So what's in store for you this week? Back towards the end of the week, but as a whole, what does the week mean for you?
Well, the rest of the week is now about Gemma. Because Gemma's been very busy doing breakout sessions and so on. So I have a Goblin Hoodie photo shoot at 3:30. So I think that's because we've just actually received one new member this afternoon.
Okay.
So David Liu was just given the Golden Hoodie.
Nice.
Which is lovely to see. Very well deserved. So we're having another photo shoot there. And we've done breakout sessions this week. We talked about the journey to CTA. We had 6 CTAs yesterday telling us about how, just demystifying things a bit.
Sure.
And then today we had a solutioning session, which was a lot of fun. Challenging in a small space, and without flip charts there when we need them, but we managed, and we think people enjoyed themselves.
Okay, great.
So yeah, it has been a bit crazy with interviews, and I've never been interviewed before really. So
everyone wants a piece of your time. That's it when you.
It has been busy.
Well, look, we really do appreciate you coming on. We wish you all the best with your health and with your CTA, your plans, and the group, Ladies Be Architects. So we'll obviously share the message and make sure that everyone in our market and network is aware of it as well, and encourage people to get involved. So enjoy the rest of Dreamforce. Thank you very much, and we'll love to stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Well.
Cheers.
Cheers.